So we are going to give Jason a warm welcome. We got a live testimony. Can you believe this? We got a live testimony. So I want people to get encouraged to do their testimony. So let's give them a warm welcome. Come on. Do you want the chair? Do you want a chair?
No. If I sit, I'll fall asleep.
Yeah. Do you want
No, I got this.
Oh, you don't need that. Okay.
Otherwise, I can't turn the pages. Is this on? You can hear me?
Yeah, no,
Okay. Well, my name is Jason. I'm a follower of Christ. Struggle with drugs, alcohol, and anger. I was a proud, drunk drug addict that thought I had everything I needed. I had a good paying full-time job, a 4-bedroom house, a little BMW with personalized plates. Of course, I had to have J. Fisher plates. I was living a double life. Very few people knew that after work in the gym, I'd go partying every single night. And after the bar closed, I'd go looking for coke or meth. Every night, I'd I'd sleep for a couple hours, shower, go to work like nothing happened. Then the next night, back to the same thing. Growing up, I was bullied in middle school. I had one good friend, Kyle. Kyle had also got bullied, and I was there for him, he was there for me. I remember after lunch walking to the gym, and people would throw balls at us, and they'd break my glasses. I just felt miserable. On the way home from football games, I'd have to wear all my gear because the other kids would start wailing me with their helmets. And the coaches would laugh at me and tell me to get back to my seat. One time I was locked in the locker in football, and they put my padlock on, so I had to yell out my combo to get out of the locker. All this was just lowering my self-esteem. One time there were a bunch of kids, they were the stronger guys, that said, "Okay, Jason, you have to fight Shelby, or we're all going to gang up and beat you up." So fought Shelby, just a small kid. I put him on my shoulders, swung him around and threw him against a tree as the superintendent of the school drove by. Well, of course, I got suspended. I was the only one that got in trouble. That had happened a couple of times. My parents ended up going to the school and telling the principal what was going on. I felt helpless. The teachers wouldn't help me. Self-confidence was dropping. After youth group one night, I was telling my friend Jory how I wanted to go in the bathroom with a baseball bat at school and start knocking out everyone that came in. And I pull the bodies into the stalls and just keep going and going. So when the Columbine shootings happened, and I felt worse for the people that did the shootings than I did for the people that shot. It took me a long time to forgive the people at the school. I wanted to go out there and put roofing nails out in the parking lot. And I just really held on to that grudge for a long time. Probably about 10 years ago, I probably gave that up and forgave them, moved on. As I was telling Jory about that, he said, "Well, why don't you switch schools?" Well, I was blessed. We lived on a line where I could go to 4 different schools. I could go to Monticello, Maple Lake, Annandale, or St. Cloud. So my parents got me enrolled in Annandale. Middle of my 8th grade year, I switched. Kyle had a way out of bowling since I was leaving. I was concerned about him. If he stole the bandana from Ben Franklin, he could join the gang and then have people stick up for him. I lost touch with Kyle for a couple of years after I graduated, after I switched. Okay, in 9th grade, the football coach said, "Jason, you're never going to be big enough or strong enough to play football. Time to hang up your cleats." Well, senior year, the new coach asked me to come back, and I ran cross country and track instead. And I had 3 really good friends that I hung out with in school. We were seen as the good kids who didn't get into much trouble. I started living a double life to hide my drinking and smoking pot. I did well in school, ran cross country and track. I also worked quite a bit. And most people didn't know I drank or smoked pot. My senior year, I ended up going post-secondary to St. Cloud State. I reconnected with Kyle, and since we were in college, now we had a drink, right? After we graduated, we split ways again. He went to Duluth, and I went to Jamestown College in North Dakota. As a goodbye gift, he gave me a bag of pot and a pipe. It didn't take long to get to college and tell somebody that I had it. All of a sudden, I had all kinds of friends that wanted to hang out until I ran out of pot. I talked to, in Jamestown, there wasn't much around, and the stuff that was, it was really expensive. Being an entrepreneur, I called my friend Kyle and told him about the problem. He introduced me to somebody in the cities. So I was now taking this 5-hour trip each way from the middle of North Dakota to St. Paul, Kellogg and Marion, and meeting the dealer. Okay, now the more pot I sold, the better I felt, the higher my self-confidence was. So all of a sudden I had all kinds of people calling me, wanting to come and hang out, and invited me to all the parties. I still did well in college, and even tutored other students in math and chemistry. In the summer of my freshman year, I moved back to Clearwater. I started meeting different dealers, and I saw an opportunity where instead of selling to all these individual people, I'm going to just sell to dealers. And I went from selling about a quarter pound a month to about 20 pounds a week. It was easy to hide because I went to school full time. Only sold to dealers and worked. So it was nice. I remember walking in the dorms with 20 grand in my pocket, and that takes up a lot of room. So and I was just going like it was nothing. Until one of my delivery drivers and dealers got caught. Craig called me and said, "Jason, red alert." Well, I went over and brought everything I had over to Tim's place. He had an apartment right next door to me. Got out of the game, a free man by God's grace. I grew up going to church and went to youth group, the Bible camp, and every church event I could. I never doubted God's existence or Jesus dying and rising from the dead. My mom would pray with my 3 siblings and I every morning before school, at meals, and before bed. I remember praying every night about, Jesus, please don't come back until I'm old enough to get married and have kids. That was just a longing that I had. I felt convicted if I lied and could not tell a lie if I was asked a direct question. I made some good friends pretty mad at me when we were driving to a concert in Colorado. I got pulled over, and the police officer asked me if I had any drugs or alcohol in the car. I said, "Yeah, we got a cigarette pack full of joints and a cooler of beer in the trunk." Well, they took it, and we went the rest of the way to the concert. It was a $100 ticket. That was the most I ever got caught with. It was about an ounce. Okay. And the only direct lie I remember saying was when my dad called me into his office, said, "Jason, your sister just told me that you're doing cocaine. Is that right?" And I looked at him in the eye and said, "No." The only time I can remember telling a direct lie to somebody. I brought my girlfriend with me to church a few times. However, she never wanted to go back again. I was shocked when her brother and sister didn't know why we celebrated Christmas or Easter. I couldn't believe it. I remember bars closing, and Tim and I sitting at the bar talking about God. So I always knew his existence was there, and we just wasn't in. I made a lot of promises to God. Every time I'd be laying in bed with the spins or my heart was beating too fast, the deal was, Lord, if you help me feel better, I'll never do it again. Well, I broke my promise every time. He kept his. After I get off work, I'd be back out doing the same stupid thing. A friend of mine took me to church with her in the cities, and when I walked out, I was upset. I told her that going to church is supposed to make you feel better about yourself, not feeling bad about all the stupid things you've done. I was so convicted I missed the best part about grace. My attitude towards others was that I hoped they liked me, and I wanted to find a wife so bad. If I had a wife, I wouldn't have to go to the bar searching every night, and I could have kids. I was looking for a wife to fill that empty spot in my soul that can't be filled with anything but Jesus. I got a consulting job outside of the state and was excited to start over. While I was gone, I started having a budget, paying all my bills, started going to this church the very first Sunday I was there. It's there that I heard that I could have a relationship with Jesus. And people were coming up and getting baptized right in front of the church, getting dunked in this tank. And I just thought it was so cool. I was religiously going to it every single night, but I was missing something, a wife and kids. So I went back to what I knew. I knew I could find women if I went to the bars. So I'd go to the bar by myself, and it worked. I'd meet women, but didn't take me long to meet other guys that love cocaine like I did. So from the Wednesday night group, we'd get done there. I'd go back out to the bar and do coke. And this time it was getting even worse than it was in St. Cloud. I got taught how to make crack rocks, and I was smoking a lot of meth with them too. And I was so excited about Jesus, though, this time. I was telling people everywhere I went about Jesus, inviting them to church. I actually had a couple of people from church, or from the bar, go with me to church the next day. And I was living these two lives. My boss said I was doing the consulting job for at the time. He had no clue that what I was doing right before I came into work. Okay, I finished the consulting job with cash in my pocket, money in the bank, and a meth pipe filled. So I smoked that on the way home. And as I was driving through the cities, I stopped by a friend of mine's place, picked up a bunch of coke to bring back to St. Cloud to have a party. My life was getting out of control at this point, and it started becoming more and more evident. I couldn't hide it like I was before I left. My friend John started encouraging me to go fishing more and to get away from St. Cloud. It wasn't the place in St. Cloud that was the problem. It was me. Towards the end of May of 2007, I'd been drinking in Annandale. Then started getting cocaine on my mind again, and had Jesse hop in the car. We're driving down the road, down County Road 7, headed to St. Cloud with a case of beer on his lap. And all of a sudden my radar detector starts going off. And sure enough, the cop that was going the other direction stops, turns around. Well, I didn't. I accelerated, pulled into the alley right behind my garage. And we went to the bar. And after the bar, we were across the street at my St. Cloud dealer's house. And it's there where I was telling the dealer about Jesus and how he could change his life. And that was weird. We were doing lines in the basement and smoking crack on the porch. And I was telling him about Jesus. And then a couple days later, we're out on Cedar Lake, just north of here. And I made a fool out of myself with my brother's friends. They didn't do drugs, but as I was drunk, I started yelling, "Cocaine!" and nobody wanted to take me to go get some. So a friend of my sister ended up taking me out to my parents' house. There I finished a movie I had started a couple days before, took a nap, woke up with a great idea. I called Rashid and the person in St. Cloud and said, "Hey, I'll introduce my St. Cloud dealer to my city's dealer," and they were going to give me a free ball. The problem was, both my car and truck weren't at my parents' house, but my four-wheeler was. So, did what I had to do. I hopped on the four-wheeler, was driving down the road. There's south on County Road 37 here, or that way. But I remember losing control, covering my head and praying. And a passerby saw me laying unconscious between the white and the yellow line on the road. See, that's where my head was, my shoulders. It's unconscious. They didn't know who I was, and the paper said unidentified male. Well, I was airlifted to North Memorial Hospital. The first responder actually took this picture and gave it to me a few years ago. So that's the actual helicopter that took me there. Well, I was in North Memorial. I was in a coma for a number of weeks. While I was in the coma, my body was shutting down. I had pneumonia, a stroke, and they did several brain surgeries. One of them, they cut out my whole right frontal lobe. That part controls all of your reasoning and logic. That still wasn't getting it down, so they had to cut out this whole piece of my skull. Meanwhile, while I was in the coma, I was having these vivid dreams of these two lives that I was living. I had my partying life. I had a vision of me getting baptized and having a wife and kids, and just these two lives that I was living. All of a sudden, I got to an end point in the dream that I had to make a decision, one way or the other. On one side, I had this guy standing there saying, "Jason, you're either all in or you're all out. You can't have both." The other side, I don't, her brothers in St. Cloud, it was walking distance from our house, had a bunch of friends standing around a table. There were trays of beer stacked on top of each other, a pile of cocaine, and a bunch of women. They were calling me over, "Jason, come on, come on." Well, I started walking over towards them, and that guy says, "Jason, I won't leave you." Boom. I knew exactly what he was talking about. Most of the guys were just couch monkeys or people living at my house for free. So I ran over and I gave him a hug, and he says, "You're all in or you're all out?" And I said, "Well, I'm all in." Next thing I remember is waking up and grabbing my sister's shirt and telling her to get me something to drink. That's when I woke up. You see that thing coming out of my throat? Well, on the outside here, the doctors told my parents that I was going to die. And they said, "Well, there's nothing else that we can do. We're out of options." They called in Pastor Denny from church here. He came in. They were standing in the family lounge praying. And that's when my sister felt the Holy Spirit going through her. She ran in my room and my brain pressure started dropping. And that's when I woke up. I talked to Pastor Denny on Sunday about it, and he said that was the fastest miracle he's ever seen happen. So that was neat. During recovery, I had to learn to walk again, or walk with straps around me. We went through speech and occupational therapy. I was at an adventure when we were in the St. Cloud Hospital. My friend Jory and his dad came to see me. And I told Jory, I don't get it. What happened? He said, well, you were wasted going to get cocaine. I said, shh, don't tell anyone. But everyone there knew I was in the hospital for drinking and driving, but I still wanted to hide it. On the way back from the hospital, we stopped by the drugstore to pick up my meds, and I secretly bought a pack of cigarettes. There I was, hiding my addiction again. This whole time, my mom still didn't even know I smoked. And she didn't then either when I was at her place. I'd leave and hide. And even while this piece of my skull was still out, I picked up a case of NA beer. I was slamming them as fast as I could to see if I could get a buzz. It didn't work. Got a stomach ache. That was about it. At this point, I was angry. I was depressed. And want my old life back so bad. That was it. So after I got the piece of my skull back in, I ended up having a seizure in the hospital, went to move in to a group home with other men with brain injuries. The first place they moved me was with real low-functioning men. Most of them didn't even know what was going on. But that was fine. It was walking distance from my house. I'd sneak out of the group home, walk to my house, or out drinking and partying and doing coke again. One time I even drove the car back to the house. And I got in trouble for that because they saw me driving the car. They knew I was drunk, I was high. One time I was all determined to get out of there. I talked one of the group home workers into giving me my meds. Had someone else come pick me up, and I was down in the cities with two of my dealers where it's getting high as can be. And eventually they moved me out of that low-functioning home into a home with higher-functioning men. It was harder to sneak out of this place. I could still sneak it in. The workers were easier to get along with. But it didn't take long for me to continue making a fool of myself, getting the workers in trouble. Because I'd have these big fires in the backyard, and I didn't want to go inside, so we peed outside in the snow. And when the managers came in the morning, and, who did this? What's this? Some of the neighbors took pictures of the big fires that we were having that lit up the whole neighborhood in this housing development. It's another thing is drinking. I couldn't stop it, but my 6 months from having the last seizure was about up. And I was on this pill called Antabuse, where it makes you sick if you drink while you're taking it. So there I was starting to get used to the group home workers driving me to work every day, taking me out grocery shopping, and they paid the whole bill. It was great. I lived there free. In this nice house, everything was paid for. But I still wanted to get out of there. So once I got my license back, I still have my Explorer, my House got foreclosed on, the Beamer got repossessed, and creditors were calling me all the time when I was in the group home. And when I moved back home, I had started hanging out with a young adults group from church here, getting involved with more and more things. But I still couldn't take it that way. I still did coke and drink every opportunity I had. I just couldn't get it. After we'd be doing all these events, I'd still have to go out and, after a couple of beers, every time, I had to call someone and get it. I worked at a liquor store, and we even had a guy drive to the liquor store and bring us coke and go in the bathroom and doing it there. Thinking of, geez. And then walk out of the bathroom making sure we didn't have anything on our nose. It's so easy, but yet I could hide it from so many people. Okay, and then I made a fool out of myself at my sister's wedding. It was a dry wedding. Maybe we can still get beer at a dry wedding. So we were having a fire, and a bunch of us were sitting around the fire drinking. Everyone got tired and went to bed. Meanwhile, I ran out of wood to burn. So I did what I do next. I went through the garbage can looking for things to burn. There's nothing else left in the garbage cans, but the big plastic garbage can with wheels, they burn. So I burnt all the garbage cans. Then so the garbage cans are gone, the garbage is gone, the wood's gone. But they had these carved benches. This was at a Bible camp. And they were carved out with a chainsaw and had all this special stuff on them. Well, they were heavy. But I put them in the fire to burn. The next morning, I woke up and my brother-in-law ratted me out. Said it was me. Well, who else is going to have a fire like that and burn everything? So after the church service the next morning, I had to go and tell the leaders of the camp that I burnt all their stuff and their bench. Well, it was time for me to get back on and abuse. Stop drinking. Well, I was doing well. Now I'd run around the lake every morning with my mom, then I'd rollerblade around it with my dog, started eating healthy. Things are going well, sober. Then I met this girl online. She both drank and smoked. So our first date, we stood outside the bar, or the bowling alley, as she finished her cigarette. Then we went inside and she drank while we bowled. I toughed it out. I didn't. It was a few dates later until I stopped taking the antabuse and started drinking. 2 days shy of knowing her for 2 months, I got married. So I instantly had a house, and she had 2 girls, some kids. And we were involved at this church. The girls called me daddy. Well, she didn't like taking her bipolar meds, so it started turning into chaos. I'd either have to go live at my parents' house, or I could go back. It was switches all the time. But we'd only drink when the girls were gone on the weekends or after they had gone to bed. And when she was in her lows, I'd be out drinking in the garage by myself. I only did coke one time while we were married. On July 9th, 2010, my birthday was on the 8th, so I picked up a case of beer, a bunch of fireworks, got home, was so excited to tell her, well, I'm not feeling well. All right. Well, I went and drank the whole case of beer by myself. let off the fireworks, and started a fire in my tar driveway. It was a brand new tar driveway. So it was all black, and I had this big fire roaring in it. And tar does start burning and melt if you have a hot enough fire. So she came out rightfully angry and yelling at me. But I was out of beer and smokes, so I did what any other drunk would do. I walked up to the gas station, bought a pack of smokes, and went to the bar. Well, she came up to the bar, angry again, and told me that we're done, that I needed to leave the house in the morning. Well, after the bar closed, I walked to Coburn's, picked up some 3-2 beer, went back, and then I woke up in the morning. The house was empty. Everyone was gone. I went in on one of the girls' beds in the basement, and I was crying out to the Lord like never before. And my dad ended up driving up all the way to Mora. We opened up every single can of beer and dumped them down the sink and made a promise that he would never have another beer again if I made the same promise. Well, I had my last beer the early morning hours of July 10th, 2010. So 15 years was just a couple weeks ago. I moved back to my parents. I started reading the Bible every morning and every night, and when I finished, I started over. And I started going to Celebrate Recovery here on Tuesdays. And anyone that doesn't come here, we see miracles every single week. And during our prayer time, it's just amazing seeing the lives that are transformed and the things that are happening. So excited about that. My relationship with Jesus was growing leaps and bounds. And never before had I been so hungry to hear about Jesus. Admitting that I had a problem and that I can't do it alone was huge. That took me up until a few years ago to actually admit that I had a drinking problem. Because people would say, Jason, you couldn't have just one beer. I'd look at them and I'd say, well, I never intended to have just one beer. And so I swore I didn't really have a problem, but as I was writing this testimony, more and more I'm looking at it, at how messed up my life was. I can admit it that I have a problem and I can't do it alone. It's only by God's grace that I could get sober, not have to go to treatment, not have to do all the other things. Step 12 in the 12 steps is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles with all of our affairs. This step has had the biggest impact on my recovery. Remember Kyle from earlier on? He ended up going to prison and treatment, and every single time he got out, he met a woman at AA or NA, and right back to it. Well, he ended up killing himself in Stearns County Jail before going back to prison, or before he was getting sent back there. And this was shortly after the Lord had set me free. And I still feel bad for not calling him more and hanging out with him more. Kyle would always go and do whatever I was doing. If I was working at Coburn's, he'd get a job at Coburn's. If I was, that I went post-secondary, he went post-secondary. I just don't get why I didn't call him more. So I felt bad, and ever since then I've wanted to use my past of addiction to help others, help other men get set free. In the end of 2021, I started a ministry called Kingdom Works, where we help men break free from the cycle of addiction and just start over, start a new life, having friends, and it's been really cool. And going to Celebrate Recovery is a requirement of being part of Kingdom Works. So that's fun. So I've got some of the guys right here that are part of Kingdom Works. By God's grace, I'm running a company based in St. Augusta, running Kingdom Works. I was baptized in the Jordan River. I'm no longer looking for a wife. Christine and I have been married for 8 years. We have 4 boys, 6, 4, 2, and a month-and-a-half-year-old. Our mission as a couple is to love God, love people, and show and tell as many people as we can about the new life that Jesus offers. My desires to drink are almost gone. If I'm not going to meetings or working with others in recovery, they still come. But Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The more I lean on him, the easier it is. I still deal with anger, but my friends at Celebrate Recovery, I can share those frustrations with, or my anger, and not have to worry about them telling somebody else, oh, Jason did this, can you believe this? But they're there to listen and to support me. That's a great thing with Celebrate Recovery. I went from living 2 lives to living for the Lord. So if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. John 8:36. Eventually, I ran into a dealer I had shared Jesus with in a Bible study that I was leading in the prison. He had come to faith as well. My friend Tim, that I talked about Jesus with in the bar, he's been sober longer than I have and is now married to a born-again believer. My friend Jory from before is now sober and has a wife. And working the program, I have a group of men I can trust and hold me accountable. If you're new or considering joining Celebrate Recovery, work the program. Keep coming back and expect to see miracles. Drugs and alcohols didn't fill that void inside of me. Even the wife and kids didn't fill it. Only surrendering to Jesus was that void inside of me completely filled, and it's given me joy, hope, and purpose. Thanks for listening, you guys.